as humans, we want to feel seen, heard, appreciated, and loved, no matter what dynamic it is. And so how can we empower our partner? How can we empower our teams? How can we empower them to really like step into what we want them to step into, present ideas? And then the more collaborative we can make it, the more on board they're going to have, the more bought in they're going to be, because they're going to be like, that was my idea.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Culture Camp. This one is going to be awesome. It's epic. It is my first lady boss, Caloni Michelle. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Man, this has been a long time coming. You are a busy woman.
I try to do it all.
That's awesome. You are a branding and marketing agency. You have a branding and marketing agency that is really a worldwide brand, right? Mm-hmm. You're in real estate funds. You have a fundication show coming up. You're a partner in iShare. You have a real estate marketing that is a real estate marketplace. Mm-hmm. A commercial real estate fund. You're an international speaker, event host, and you have over 300 publications, including Forbes. That's sick. And your latest project that I am recently introduced to is the Sisterhood Society. It's a national movement for women. Mm-hmm. That's pretty awesome.
That's a passion project.
That's cool. Which I think, we'll get into that a little bit, but I kind of, ins and outs of what you're doing on there. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
So, what I want to start out with is how did you start doing all this? I mean, why go into brand? I mean, what was the first thing you started to do? When was that decision that you made? Was it early on? Were you really young? Was it in high school, college? When did you decide to become this epic lady boss?
Well, depends on how far back we want to go.
As far back as you want.
So I grew up pretty poor. I like to say trailer trash poor because it was. But I remember when I was 15, so this is after my dad passed away, and there was one bed that I was like there's one night that I was laying in bed and I was like, man, this is not the life I want to live. This is not the life I want to have for myself. And I knew that if I wanted to create a different life for myself, then I would have to create it myself, right? Like it's not going to be handed to me and all those things. And so when I was a teenager, I was like, I want to be the boss of a Fortune 500 company. Did I know what a Fortune 500 company was back then? No, but it just sounded really cool. And it sounded like I could just make things happen. So that's where like a lot of the drive and stuff came from. And in terms of where I am now, like I always thought I would be corporate world. I mean, I'm sure for you, like that's what our parents, well, maybe not your dad, because he was on the entrepreneur side. Right. But for my parents and a lot of our generation, it was like, hey, you go to school, you go to college, you have a career, you get married, you have kids and all the things, right? And so I thought that that's what I was going to do. And when I was, when I got married in 2011. And so I just I wasn't satisfied with corporate world. Like I wanted more, and I didn't like that I was essentially defined by my job description, and I couldn't really reach outside of that. And that for me just wasn't challenging. Like I love growth. I love the person that I have become, but also the person that I get to become in the future in pursuit of all of, my goals and my dreams. And so I knew that I just, if I was going to do anything, it was going to be up to me to make those changes and create that life. And I just started, in digital marketing, 2005-ish. And then it just started growing the branding stuff. Like I was like, oh, I really like this, like 2010, started learning different elements or different aspects of branding. And then it just evolved and started to evolve. And then I started learning like website stuff and then, more digital marketing, and then that Instagram. I don't know. Were you ever in Instagram on 2014?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Yes. So, and that's when I saw like these influencers were starting to make money, typically just by like partnerships and things. Right. And I was like, wait a minute, there's something here to social media and being able to monetize it. And essentially I started to build my brand. And how I was able to build my brand, people were asking me how I was doing it. So I started teaching people. And that's how I started my branding and marketing agency. And a lot of the online appearance of that company is more toward personal brands, because there really aren't very many companies that specialize in building and growing personal brands. Right. And so behind the scenes, a lot of what we'll do is we'll also do like fractional CMO work for companies. And then we'll also build company brands and all those sort of things. So really it has just evolved, and I'm more in love at this point, not on like all the accolades, but on like the person that I've gotten to become throughout the years, and where I still get to go, and as I pursue my dreams.
Heck yeah. No, that That's awesome. That's an amazing story. Most people, I love, so going back to when you were 15 years old, I mean, I would call that probably a defining moment in your life when you were laying in bed.
Yes.
You said your dad recently just passed away and you are like, I have to change something. Some people, I'm probably the majority of people would say, I'm going to give up. And I'm never going to succeed because of my father passing away, because I grew up poor, because of this, because of that, because, there's so many excuses. It's so interesting that you can take two very similar stories and one person uses all those, issues and things that happen to them as fuel to become successful. And one of them uses as a fuel to feed the negativity and they become, they go on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think, kudos to you. That's really awesome. Was there anybody in your life that taught you that was, hey, you should go and do this, or you can do more? But really, was it just an internal thing?
It was internal. I mean, I didn't have very many mentors at that point in my life. I mean, there was so much pain, Jason, from growing up, from physical abuse to emotional abuse, to seeing my parents like fight and argue, to the siblings like fighting and arguing, to just not having money, not being able to afford things, like my grandpa sending us money so that my parents could buy like Christmas presents and back to school shopping and things like that. And It was just like, it like that. I was like, this just isn't how I want to live life. And I saw, like you see, like in movies and things, and it's like, that's more of the life that I want to live. I want a life that's free of a lot of preventable pains.
Right.
And not that I'm not going to have pain in my life, or I haven't, but it was just like, I'm going to just make the most of it. And I mean, I played sports like in high school and elementary school, like growing up. I never played club sports because we didn't have the money to do that at the time. But I was always like the leader, if you will, or like one of the leaders, like on the sports teams and just doing things. So it's like I've always had that natural inclination to be a fighter.
Right.
And so I think that a lot of it comes from that, but also from wanting to change my life. And, when your desire for change is greater than your desire to stay the same, I mean, you'll move mountains. Right.
No, I love that. And this will bring me to a point. A lot on this podcast, we talk about this a lot. And it was never on purpose. It's just kind of become, a talking subject. Do you think people are born to be like an entrepreneur style, CEO style person, or do you think they're made?
I would say made, because I never thought that I didn't think I'd be an entrepreneur.
Right.
I mean, the corporate world would be a lot easier route, and I'd probably be working a lot less than I am now, but I wouldn't change it.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. Do you think that, I mean, and it kind of comes down to, I guess, being a certain personality, right? And most people, I guess, I believe are pretty much born who they are, kind of in personalities. That's why, really, I don't know. Do you believe like your childhood defines that? Because it's like siblings. Everybody's different, right? And like me and my brother and sisters have had the exact same childhood, and we're all so different. So, you're kind of born with that personality, but you have to, I like that you have to kind of make the decision to be made. You can have the personality, but you have to have that, it's almost like most people have to have that defining moment of, okay, is enough, because time can just pass by. And, you could be 55 saying, man, like, I think it's time to start now. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know if it's too late, but you're kind of, many years down the road. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Well, I really should have been a statistic. Really, like if you look at all the things, like I should have been a statistic. But here's the thing. If you look at millionaires, it's like the statistic is like 70 or 80% of them grew up poor.
Right.
And you wonder why. It's because you can't teach someone desire. It's like you have it or you don't. You can motivate them, right? If they have the desire, you can motivate them, but you can't teach desire. People have it or they don't. And when you look at the statistic for millionaires, those people have the desire because they wanted to create a different life for themselves.
Right. I love that because, so I grew up in a wealthier family and people always kind of give me crap for that. But if you look at statistics, I have less odds of becoming successful than someone else who grew up poor.
Yep.
So I'm not saying look at me, but I'm like, guys, give me a break, because and you see this a lot in probably branding, businesses, marketing, is there's a person and the succession is the worst thing to ever happen. Because usually it's that second generation that destroys the company and third makes it even worse.
Yep.
It's very rare. Like maybe a couple companies that I can think of, something like Ford Motor Company, maybe, the Ford family has kind of kept that going. but they've all really like worked in the company. It's very rare for the second generation to take over and keep rolling. So, I 100% agree with you. I mean, you should have been the statistic, but you made the defining moment at 15 years old of all things, in your bed, lying there saying, I'm going to change my life and do something different. I think that's awesome. When you were growing up, you said you played sports. Did you go to college?
I did. Yeah. So I had my bachelor's and my MBA.
Okay.
Yeah.
MBA. Where'd you get that from?
Penn State.
Penn State.
So that's when I was wearing the Utes gear the other day at the game in Florida. I was like, I'm wearing the wrong gear here.
That's awesome. That's in, where's Penn State? It is in, what city is that in Pennsylvania? Yeah, I can't remember. I don't know. I'm going to Pennsylvania.
Either.
I'm going to Pennsylvania in a couple of days, and I saw.
I should know this.
Yeah. Did you actually go in Pennsylvania, or did you take?
It was a 2-year straight program, so we didn't get a break, and so the whole program was online, except we did residencies there that we flew out. So we worked in cohorts and throughout the entire program, and then we had. I mean, it was intense.
Really?
It was an intense program.
You did that in marketing.
It was just general MBA.
Just general.
They didn't, their MBA program. You don't specialize in like marketing or some of these other areas.
Cool. So when did you start your marketing branding? That was in 2005.
Okay, hold on. So let's see. This company right here particularly was 2018 when I opened that one officially.
Okay.
So what had happened before that too is I was operating a lot of what I was doing in the services under my personal brand.
Okay.
And then I was like, you know what? Like the team's getting bigger. Like I really need to move everything over. And so then I made that transition from that company in 2018. And then, so what was that, like 4 years ago on that one? Yeah.
Yeah. So was that pretty much like your first big company that you?
Yes. My ex and I, we've had some other companies and things like that. But yeah, that was kind of my solo little
so did you
John, learning all the,
learning
all the lessons.
So what are some biggest lessons that you did learn starting out, with your own agency and dealing with people?
Yeah. Well, actually, how about this? In 2013, so my MBA program was 2012 to 2014. I started a sportswear company, but so I was working in grad school. I was going full-time to grad school. And then I decided, because I just get bored with things, that I wanted to start doing the sports well. And it was mainly like the sports bras with all the strappy, tops and stuff. And so I started building the prototypes, like sewing the prototypes. I started I went to like the magic show in Vegas. I started finding suppliers and manufacturers, and I spent about 1.5 years on this. But here's the thing though. I never brought it to market because I didn't have the confidence in myself. Really? I always thought like I needed to have a partner. Like I didn't know what I was doing. My parents weren't entrepreneurs. I didn't have entrepreneurial mentors for the most part. Like this was just something I've just been like paving my way with. My whole entrepreneurial journey has just been me paving the way and figuring it out.
Really?
That's what it has been. I mean, other than like books and mentors at this point, like back then I wasn't really, buying books, like say back in like 2010 and things.
Right.
So so that was I guess my company, but I never brought it to market because, well, it was going to be, if anyone's in the apparel business, it was a big chunk of money at the time for me to invest in it. And I didn't have the confidence in myself that I even knew what I was doing.
Wow.
So
that's an interesting story.
I guess that was kind of failed, but not really.
Not really. I mean, did you learn something from it?
It was part of the tuition of being an entrepreneur.
For sure.
Yeah.
What advice would you give someone that is in the same position of you were in at that time? Because I'm sure that you learned a lot. And if you go back, would you do anything different?
Yes, I would learn more about running a small business, because sometimes you can buy like books on like marketing or sales or HR, right? But you don't understand like the different departments of a business and how they work synergistically together.
Right.
And so that's probably a big one, is maybe finding like a course or something that teaches you about small businesses. Cause in my MBA, I mean, you're talking like international and global companies and operations and supply chain. And that's not as pertinent for a small little business. Sure. So I would say something like that, but also like hiring a mentor, getting in the room with the right people, or getting in rooms with the right people, like paying to play. Like for me, I feel like I wasted a lot of time trying to do things myself, trying to learn the website stuff, and now it's benefited me, right? But at the time, it took me a long time to learn the skills that I needed to learn, because I was like trying to save a dime, if you will, to learn it myself, so I didn't have to go spend, I don't know, $10,000 on a website when I'm like, that was stupid. Like
Right.
I just wasted time. But at the time I valued my money more than I valued my time. And now it's flip-flopped.
That's powerful. People going into it is important to find a mentor, very, very important to find a mentor. There's a lot of groups out there that you can, get involved with. You have a group that is the Sisterhood Society. And we can kind of talk about that right now. That is, let's talk about, so what is Sisterhood Society? Let's start with that. We can talk a while about this.
So, Kate Strong and I, we co-founded it in May, and essentially what has come up for me, and I'm not going to speak for Kate, but at least for me is over the years when I was married. So I was married 11 years from, I got married in 2011. Yes. Got married. So we were together almost 14 years. So the thing is that, I didn't prioritize myself as like a female. I didn't prioritize my girlfriends, my friendships. Like I almost, lost my identity in my marriage, or my marriage was my identity, and my ex's like hobbies and things like that were part of my identity. I didn't take the time to really like nurture my soul. And so coming out of the marriage and realizing that like, this is not like the life that I want to be living in terms of like, even like post-divorce. Right.
Right.
And like where I didn't have the girlfriends, I didn't have that support system. Like I wasn't nurturing me. And I feel like guys are still pretty good about this. And I could be wrong. Like when they're married, they're good about still having and maintaining those friendships.
Right.
Where women and I don't have kids, but I think women a lot of times it's about like nurturing the family and going to all the kids' functions and doing that, where they might not have as many girlfriends, if you will. And the thing is last November, I told myself, so last year I kind of hid under a rock all year doing all the divorce stuff and processing that.
Right.
And so in November was the first when I started to come out, and I started to go to things, and I started to like step out. And that's where that's where I was like, this is an opportunity for me to create a new identity. And what do I want it to look like? And I told myself, if I'm going to stay in Salt Lake, because I'm from California, I moved here in 2015. I said, I'm going to build a very close, great group of girlfriends. So that was in November. And then over the next 6 months, I was able to build a lot of great girlfriends. And I saw the difference that it was making like inside of me, like inside of like my heart and my soul, and how fulfilling it was. And I was like, why did I not pursue that before? Like what was I thinking in a way?
Right.
And so now coming out of that, I see the impact that it's made in my life and the fulfillment that it's brought to me. And I want that for other women. I want to show them like, look, like you can have your cake and eat it too. You can have a career. You can be a boss babe.
Right.
You can do all these things. Maybe you can have a marriage and work, I'm not saying women should get a divorce to have a career by any means, but like that they can have these things. It's just a matter of like helping women get clear on what they want. Most people, men and women alike, they know what they don't want, but they don't often know what they want.
Right.
And so when they don't know what they want, well, how do you even set goals? Like, where are you going in life? Like, what's going to bring you fulfillment? And so for me, I want to be able to help women with that and give them like tools, help them determine their values, help them determine their non-negotiables, help them set a vision for their life, help them just like give them like the motivation, the encouragement, the roadmap, the tools that they need if they want to build a business. And so I really want to be that for women. And the thing is like, I didn't have one particular person who helped me get to where I am. But the thing is I know I've done something right because of A, the companies that I've built, but B, the fulfillment that it's brought for me. Right. And I'm like, I must have done something right. You know what I mean? I had plenty of missteps, but I must have done something right. And now I can teach women at least where I've gotten to where I am now. And that was kind of the premises. I was talking, Kate was one of the women back in November that just kind of took me under her wing and just like loved me and like brought me into her friend circle too. And just gave me advice like post-divorce and just navigating life after divorce. And so I was talking, we've developed a good friendship, and this was probably in April. And I said, Kate, like, I just have this calling to help women. And I don't know what it looks like. And I don't necessarily like want to coach women, but like, I want to create something for women. And she's already doing stuff for women. And so we're like, let's collaborate. So then we did the luncheon, and it has evolved. So tomorrow's our 4th luncheon. And then we're launching a lot of other things with it too, which is exciting. And that's kind of how it has evolved, is really like, at least from my standpoint, I want to be able to help women who might not have the tools, the desire, the know-how, or maybe even like the motivation to be
Right.
able to build something for themselves.
Right. That's so awesome. That it's so cool to see you do that, because I personally only know you how I know you, and you're freaking a badass and you make shit happen. And, we're working on a project together right now that I feel like you're just dragging, me along as fast as you can run. And I'm like, flipping in the wind back here, but because you make shit happen, and you're awesome, and you have the most insane work ethic. And it's an awesome thing that what you're doing with women, because there are so many women out there that just maybe they want to do something, they don't know how to do something. Or like, I would agree with you that a lot of women do think that their identity is their marriage and their kids. And if they don't have that anymore, what do they do? And I would argue that a lot of women stay in marriages because of that they think that without him or the kids or whatever, that they have no identity. Michelle and I have had many conversations about this, that like, hey, I want everything to kind of be our thing, but you can have your thing. Like, we're a group, we're a team, we're killing it together. But if you ever want your thing, then like, whatever you do, or can I do anything for you? Like, it's always been a support thing, but she has had those conversations with me about her identity, and, especially with her being hard. She was a University of Utah dancer, then she was an NFL dancer, then an NBA dancer. And like, then she stopped. And then she got thrown into me and my daughter, and I'm like, oh crap. Like, well, I'm sorry. Like but I mean, she loves me, and like, I warned her a million times before we got married and got together. I was like, hey, this is me. And but we can work together. But it's been awesome. But I agree with you that a lot of women do struggle with that, and it's so cool that them to have a avenue or something to be able to be a part of something else with other really great women. Yeah. Is this like a club? Do you got to join it? You can just go, like, is it open to the public? Yeah. Are you like, is your like demographic entrepreneurs and business owners, or who's your demographic?
Good question. So, it's just been naturally, like, as it has evolved, right? The great thing is like, so I'm 35. I'm not quite sure how old Kate is. Probably early 40s, but so it's like 30s and 40s, because we're both like, we've come together. And so we get to merge the gap between it. And the beauty of it is the women that are kind of a little bit older and more experienced, for the most part, they almost in a way like act as mentors and provide advice during these luncheons to like some of the younger women. Wow. Which is beautiful, because we get both sides of it. Right now it's local, but we're going national with it. And we're going to be launching like a membership side of it. Just because like these women, they're like, we want more, like we want to be connected more. We want like more like from this group. And so we're looking at A, our bandwidth, but B, like, how do we give women more? Like, there's a need for this. Right. And so how can we provide women with what they need to just help them have more fulfillment and love in their lives? And
that's awesome. Going back to your marriage, is there any advice that you would give or could give a woman in a marriage of how to, if they have a successful husband, or they feeling like their identity is, they're stuck in this crisis, they don't know what to do? Is there some advice that you would give them, short of, hey, leave? What would you tell somebody?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, interesting that you brought that up. I've had women after each luncheon that we've done, and they'll come up to me and they'll say, Caloni, like, I feel like there's a dichotomy. I had this burning desire to build X company or to do these things, but I feel like I can't do it because my marriage, my family, like my kids, my husband isn't very supportive. Like, he wants me to be a stay-at-home mom, like whatever it is. Right. And so I have these women, I'm like, why does it have to be a dichotomy? Why is it or? Why can't it be and? Right.
Amen to that.
And so, it's almost like trying to give women like the tools of like staying in their marriage, but then also doing that. But then again, it comes down to also the dynamic with the couple. Like, and there's certain thing, the thing about like my marriage is it didn't dissolve because of like my companies. Like, that wasn't it. My ex, he traveled a lot. Like, he was gone for anywhere between 2 and 8 months out of like each time he would go overseas for work stuff and projects. And he couldn't, like, there were lives at stake. Like, he couldn't just come home. Right. Like, it was either like stay there and protect our country, and he's not in the military, but and do what he needed to do there, or like come home to me. And so for me, it was like, well, what do I be selfish and say come home because I have needs as a wife and like I want to feel loved and whatever it is, or do I just put my selfish needs aside, or just my needs as a woman, and then let him go like and protect the country. And so there were just like things like that. It wasn't my work ethic. It wasn't my companies that led to the demise of my marriage. And so I want to make sure that as I'm giving women advice, I'm never coming from a place of like get out, like
right.
get out of that. But the thing is like, I think it's important as women to make sure like to really reflect on our lives and just be like, is this what like we want to create for ourselves?
Right.
Like and if it's not, then do what you got to do. But if like the marriage and the home life is really like a top priority, well, how do you build this with it?
Right.
And so I think a lot of it is just going to come down and like talking to like one's partner and just being like, look, like, how do we meet both of our needs here?
Right.
Like, because otherwise the thing is if women don't, if they're not, maybe it's not building a company, right? Maybe it's just surrounding themselves with a great group of girlfriends too, and like supportive girlfriends, and not ones that are catty and talk a bunch of trash and stuff like that. And maybe that's
because you have those groups where they just go to brunch and it's all just shit talk on their husbands. Like that's a toxic, environment for sure.
Yeah. And that's the space that we've created with Sisterhood Society. Is it's not about like, we're not trying to tear people down. It's or even tearing down men at this point. You see all the masculinity things and men this and women femininity, and let's get women to, elevate their status, but by dragging down men. And I'm like, wait, why does the men part even have to be a focal point? Can't we just talk about like lifting each other up and like, let's just collectively as women, like do the things that we have to do, like leave men out of it. Like they can do their own thing and like we can rise together. And it's not, and so that's something that we want to make sure that we're doing at Sister Society, is not tearing men down. Men are like beautiful and wonderful and like, and appreciate all that they are. But in addition to that, like we get to create the life that we want too.
Right.
So that's been a big thing for us, is just how do we just support each other in our ambitions, in our dreams, in our marriages, in our careers, in every aspect of life.
Right. Culture camp, this podcast is all about teamwork. And I think people get a lot lost in like what teamwork is and like where teamwork is found, right? They all think of, I'm a manager, that's where my teamwork is. I'm a business owner, that's where my team. Really, like the team starts, kind of with, if you wake up next to a person and whoever that, significant other is, or that family, that's where you start your day, the team, right? Because, I'm a firm believer, and I've gotten told this a million times, and I've tested it out, and I'm a firm believer that if your home life just sucks and you cannot work well with your spouse or significant other, whoever you're living with or whatever that person is, or even your kids, the moment you step into work, it's hard to that stops at the door. It carries with you all day long, all the time. And if you're constantly getting nagged on or constantly getting this or that or not supporting, I mean, there's a lot of aspects in a family, in home life and significant other, that really affects work. Do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah, I do. But the thing is like when we look at, well, why that home team life, right?
Right.
Why is it that it's not working, or why is it that it's miserable? Is it because each individual, whether it's the mom, the dad, the kids, whatever it is, but a lot of times it's the mom and the dad, is it because they're not happy and then they're projecting and they're doing all these things to sabotage the marriage, or, like what is it? And so I think a lot of it comes down to the individual person and how do they find happiness and fulfillment within, because once they fill up their own cup, they can give from the overflow.
Exactly.
So with that, it's just like, okay, well, each individual look at like, how do you find fulfillment in what you're doing? How do you find love? How do you find happiness? Then as a couple in that container that is built, how do you find all those things within that? And then that just, that's the foundation of it all. And then you can go and you can build businesses. You can show up for other people. You can show up for your friends. You can show up for like immediate family members, and even larger family at scale. But I think a lot of it comes down to the individual and them just not being happy and fulfilled with who they are. That's
very powerful. And like we talked before, it comes down to a defining moment. Like it takes one or the other. And I like that. I like what you're doing, because you're instilling confidence in women to maybe have that conversation with their husband of like, hey, I'm not fulfilled. Now, I'm not happy. I'm not saying I'm not happy with you. I'm just not being fulfilled. Like you think I'm happy. You think everything's great. And a lot of it are successful families, I should say, with a very successful husband, and, with the wife is just chilling at home and, just whatever. And, she like there's a lot of people are different, and some people find super fulfillment in just raising a family and saying, "Oh, mom, kudos to you. That's great." But there's a lot of women that do not. That's kind of where they're stuck in that rut. And I think it will come down to that defining moment that you have to have that conversation. One on the other side, like if it's the husband initiating, and if it's the wife initiating that, saying, "Hey, let's figure this out and be a team." And figure out a way that it will work, not saying, "Hey, I'm bouncing, screw you because I'm not fulfilled." Well, there are some things, a lot of times, we all know communication is such a big deal. And it's very difficult in having, true communication, because there are oftentimes like, my ex-wife, there are oftentimes that she was unhappy. I had no idea. I'm thinking she's great. Like I'm thinking I'm doing my job. Like I talked about this in an earlier episode. I thought I was doing my job. I was bringing home the money. Vacations, cars, was my duty. And she's like, "No, I just wanted you at home." And I was very similar to your ex-husband. I wasn't, on foreign soil, but I was traveling a lot, sometimes 15 weekends in a row, speaking at different places, and not really giving them, even in my off days and off times, giving my wife or ex-wife, the time. And so, we talk about before, we could talk about a lot of defining moments in life. Is just, you can almost nail down to a lot of different situations, that defining moment, where life, either began, or where you can, or and if it doesn't work, you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, "We gave it everything we had." I mean, that's really important to have that kind of closure if that's where you end up going.
Well, and something, and I remember, and this was, something that I think that I did wrong, is that, I was unhappy in ways, but I didn't, it was like I would kind of voice it, but I didn't understand how to make a change. Like I didn't know myself well enough to know what I needed to be in a space of like true fulfillment and happiness. But I guess when your partner's gone all the time, that is going to affect you no matter what.
Right.
But I've done so much work on myself over the last 2 years to really get to know like who I am, like what my values are, what my non-negotiables are in life for myself, for a partner. And I think that if I could challenge anyone that's listening right now, if you're not happy in, say, your relationship, in any partnership, this could be a business partnership too, don't complain about it per se, but really take a deep look within and try to figure out what would the solution be? Like what solutions could be implemented that might make you happy? And then from there, talk to your partner, whether it's your spouse or business partner or whoever it is, to try to find a solution. Because I was more like, this doesn't make me happy, but cool. Like I'm just going to sit in that.
Right.
That doesn't do anything.
Right.
But just me complaining and bickering, and that doesn't help.
Right. And that's great advice, because there's a lot of partnerships in general hard, right? Whether it's your wife, significant other, or just a straight up business partner. And it's really that communication. Like the project that me, you, and we can say Ryan are working on, we're straight up. Like we talk each other. Do you like it? Do you not like it? And we're 3 different brave personalities. But the most important thing is we throw stuff out there, and whatever we decide on, we decide on. A lot of partnerships that I don't, it's either like yes man, yes woman, and yeah, okay, and you don't want to voice it. But we don't know what we don't know. Yeah. And if you're in a partnership with someone and you're having a really hard time with them and you're not liking things they're doing, have the conversation and say, "Hey, I don't like, I'm not attacking." There's a tactful way to do it. Like you can't just be an asshole to them. Mm-hmm. You got to come to them and say, "Hey, this is why I don't agree with what you're doing, or I would like to do it this way," or "Hey, I disagreed with what you said to me in front of those people," and whatever, something like that. It's just, it goes back to communication, right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's 2 parts with it. There's the delivery of it, right? Like how can one deliver their opinions in a way that isn't attacking to the other people? So for example, like when we were talking about, let's just say some of the venue stuff we were looking at before, right. And you're like, "Yeah, Caloni, I don't really like that idea." But your delivery of it was great. You could have come at me like in another way, like almost like attacking me, but then I would have been like, I would have gotten probably a little bit defensive about it. So there's right. The delivery of it, of softening the delivery. But then there's also not being too attached to the outcome with partners, right? Because I might have a different outcome or desired outcome than Ryan.
Right.
But it's how can we not be too attached to it and be flexible, but then also make sure that we're careful in our delivery.
Right, for sure. That's super important because it's always, I am historically known to have a tone in my voice. Now I'm still yet to find the tone. Okay. But both of my ex-wife and my current wife always talk about this tone that I have. My mom's talking about this tone that I have, but I guess I'm kind of just a straight up person. And I'm working on it. I'm recovering from it. I guess I'm doing everything I possibly can to work on it, but you're so right. The delivery, you can say the same thing two different ways and it can come across totally different, and especially in text and different things. So now some like advice, that you would give, even a business owner or maybe that husband and wife, but really like a business owner or someone leading a team, what's some advice you give them on the delivery?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this. I've had this conversation multiple times. Okay. So it doesn't matter if it's with your spouse, your sister, your brother, a business partner, your team, using the word we instead of you. And I'm going to explain this. I got this actually from Jay Shetty. Whenever I'm going to use husband and wife example, because I think most people will relate to this. Let's just say you and I are married, Jason, and I'm just like, Jason, I'm like, you're such a, lazy butt. Right. You're so lazy. You don't do anything. Like all I need you to do is like take out the trash, and you like refuse to take out the trash. And now I'm so spun up, and you're not doing this, and you're leaving your clothes on the floor and all this stuff. Right. If I were to come at you with that, would you not get defensive right away?
Oh yeah, we're fighting.
Like automatically, like that word you, it's great for marketing purposes and for sales. But when you're having that dialogue with someone, it can come across as very attacking. Right. Now let's just say this is how I approached you. Jason, I really think I know we've been going through a couple of rough patches here, and I really think like we can implement a couple of things in our marriage so that we can improve go take it from, I don't know, a 7 to an 11 here. And I have like, can I give you like a couple of tips that like I might have, or a couple things that we might be able to work on together so that we don't have this? Well, here's like, one of the things would be like, if we could just figure out a way of how that trash can be taken out every day, or if we could just figure out a way to, so that those clothes that are all over the floor, if they can just find their way to the dirty clothes bin, right? Like, and I'm using the word we, even though I might be pointing my finger at you for 95% of it, but because when I use the word we, it softens it so much. Okay. Right. So no, you have to report back on this, Jason, because I'm telling you, it will help a lot. So I was also on a partner call. So in the real estate company iShare, there's 8 of us partners. And I tend to be like, I'm usually the one that's like leading the meetings and just leading, you know how I operate.
I do know how you operate. You're a beast.
So it wasn't, we've had 2 partner calls over the last 6 months that they weren't like, the energy it was a little off. Right. And maybe we're disagreeing on things. Okay. So this was the second one of those calls, and it was just off. And we're talking, and I'm using the word we a lot instead of you. And I'm not calling any one partner out. I'm saying we. And one of the partners says, Caloni, we need to like have a conversation about these pronouns that you're using. He said, why do you keep using we? Because I'm taking some of the blame here, even though some of the things that I was giving examples for, like I wasn't necessarily part of. Right. And I'm like, okay, let me give you an example. And I gave him a spouse example. Like if your wife, the dishwasher, and I kind of use that example, and he's like, oh, that makes sense. And I'm like, doesn't that soften it? Like that could make your marriage like go so much better and decrease the number of arguments that you're having. And so, that's the analogy that I gave him. But I think that if we do that with teams, like talking about like running teams and like companies, like if I'm just like, guys, like that we're just like something's off, or our sales aren't where we want them to be, or just our communication isn't where we really need it to be, it comes off so much softer than saying like, you're not a good communicator and you're not doing this and you're failing at this. Right. It softens it.
Well, and it gives them an opportunity to come up with an idea of how to help the situation, because people, I'm dying laughing because I'm just seeing me and Michelle right now, just, Are
you guilty of it? Are you guilty of the you?
Well, I would say I'm a guilty of the you in my relationship, and I am probably better at the we in business. Okay. I will say that I am thinking a million different ways of saying like, hey, we should do this differently. And I'm thinking, hey, you should do this differently. Yeah. But Michelle, it's a little competition here and there. And so we have a scoreboard. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. Right. I have my internal scoreboard, and I'm 1,000 to 0. She has not won anything. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I think that's so important. I think that giving them an opportunity to collaborate, right? Like a lot of at the start of my podcast, I said business is not a pyramid; it's a round table. And if you come to people like, hey, this is a circle conversation, everybody has a voice, and I want you to give me your opinion. Even though it's like I'm telling you what to do, and you're gonna tell me what I want you to do back to me. Like it's like almost that like like positive reinsurance. That's interesting.
Or you plant the seeds. I mean, I even did this with my ex. I would like plant the seeds on certain things, and so and you know what, Jason, I might be saving you thousands on marital counseling if you ever got some of it. You know what I mean? Is I would plant seeds. So let's say I had an idea, or let's say we had a weekend planned. And I kind of want to change the plan a little bit,
right?
But that doesn't always go that well. Like when someone has like a vision in place of like how the weekend's going to go, and then you try to like throw something in there. It's like, wait a minute, that's like a wrench. And like I'm planning here. So it's like planting a seed a little bit. And this is like, whether it's with a partner in business, and you just like plant seeds with people like, hey, what do you think about this? And just be like, we can talk about it later. We can talk about it tomorrow. We don't need to talk about it right now. But like this idea just like popped into my head, and like, what do you think? And then guess what? The other person, it doesn't matter. Again, spouse, business partner, then their wheels start to turn.
Right.
And then they start coming up with ideas, even though you had those ideas all along. You just plant the seed.
Right.
And it's just like, man, I get what I want. And I didn't even have to create an argument out of it.
No, that's. I love that. You can use that in so many different situations. Like there are so many people out there right now that manage teams, manage people, own businesses that are like, thinking to themselves, like, yeah, that's why I probably get some pushback. That's why I'm having a hard time communicating, right? But if you can kind of, because people love to do their own ideas. Mm-hmm. And so if you're just planting seeds, then they're like, hey, we should, I'm thinking about Michelle must do this all the time, because she's always like, I told you that already when would we go do something? But when, then you almost make it their idea, and then they buy into it so much more. Yes. And then I think that's huge.
Yeah. Because as humans, we want to feel seen, heard, appreciated, and loved, no matter what dynamic it is. And so how can we empower our partner? How can we empower our teams? Or how can we empower them to really like step into what we want them to step into, present ideas? And then the more collaborative we can make it, the more on board they're going to have, the more bought in they're going to be, because they're going to be like, that was my idea.
Right.
And so they buy in more, but we have to, a lot of times as I'm going to say business owners, I was going to say leaders, but I'm going to say more business owners, we don't necessarily know how to manage a team. We don't know how to do these things. We might not know how to empower people. We might not know how to communicate or give corrective feedback or any of those.
Right.
And so it's just all these skills that we get to learn as a leader and as we're running teams and frankly running a partnership in general.
Right. No, that's awesome. I think, and it takes a special person and a aware person to put the pride aside. Mm-hmm. To
that ego.
Yeah. The ego is so big, and like with, I can't help but laugh because like because there is a big difference between, like how I'm, with relationships and business. And I think, there's a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences. But like in business, my goal is for everybody to make it seem like it's their idea. And I want them to have all the credit. Like I don't want any of the credit. I want it all them. Mm-hmm. But sometimes in relationships, it's like, that ego gets in, mm-hmm. It's involved, and it's like, you're not really competing. There's no audience. It's just you and your spouse most likely in the car or whatever when you're arguing over things. But I think that's very powerful because you just got to put the ego aside, because at the end of the day, you just want to win, right? Yeah. And you're going to accomplish what you're going to accomplish. You're going to probably go see the movie that you want to go see. You're going to go to the restaurant that you want to go. But maybe it was their idea, but then who cares? Yeah. Like you got what you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Or it's like those arguments that, you're in the wrong, but yet you don't want to admit it because the ego.
Right.
And I just had this come up last weekend, where I was in the wrong on something, but I was like so like hell bent on just not wanting to admit that I was wrong. And I had to put my ego in check and just be like, you know what? Like, you might have a different perspective on this, or I might have a different perspective on this, but put your dang ego aside, apologize. And then it can be over in 3 minutes rather than 30 minutes or 3 hours. And it's just, it's our darn ego that gets in the way.
No, I can't help but laugh because it's so true. No, that's awesome. That's a huge think anybody for leading people, business owners, anybody, in any type of leadership position, that's so important. Communication is huge. Do you think that's been a big reason why you've been so successful, is your communication skills?
I do feel like I'm a pretty good communicator. I'm not always. I do really try to communicate. My thing is I'm at a point in my life, Jason, through what I've just been through, that this phase that I'm in right now, and whatever the next phase looks like for me, like I want to be so in tune with who I am, so transparent with like, hey, these are my desires, these are my needs, this is where I am. And I don't care what kind of partnership, business, personal, whatever it is.
Right.
And I just want to be so transparent of like, look, like this is what I need. What do you need? How can we work together to accomplish whatever it is we're trying to accomplish? And so the communication piece, I mean, it's huge. And that using the we thing, and then removing the ego. I mean, I think those are some really big factors of being a good communicator, but also in addition to that, just making sure that as an individual, you're expressing all of the areas of what you're trying to say, right? Like say with a partner, it's just like, hey, don't just tell them, 50% of how you're feeling about a certain situation. Tell them all of it.
Right.
And then that way you guys can work together. And then at the end of the day, if something doesn't work out, whatever situation it is, whatever partnership it is, at least you know that you were true to yourself.
Right.
And for me, that next phase of myself, and this phase that I'm in, it's just like, I'm going to be as true to myself. And with that, I'm going to rally an army of people that love me. And then there's going to be people that don't love me. And that's okay.
And you don't have time for that.
Yeah.
No, I feel the same way. I make time for people that make time for me. And, I'm not going to take any crap right now. I'm going to do my thing and surround myself with the right people and move, where I want to go with the right people. And I love I love partnerships because I feel like I'm easy. And, I can appreciate what you just said about being, having communication, because I don't ever feel like I'm guessing where you're at. I feel bad for like you will text me like, hey, did you get that? Hey, I'm like, oh, sorry. Like, but I can appreciate it because like, I'm not taking any offense to it. I'm like, oh, hey, sorry. But like, there are maybe some people that be like, oh, like, why you keep texting me or whatever. But I'm like, oh, no, keep texting me, keep reminding me. I'm not going to take any offense to it. I'm just going to if you have to text me every 5 minutes to get an answer, I'm okay. Like, I'm not going to take any offense to it. And I appreciate that because I'm never guessing where you're at or where we're at, when what we're doing. It helps me think clearly instead of saying, oh, does she mean that really? Or, yeah, I know, like when the venue changed, like we're like, we had an entire meeting about the style we wanted to do. And then we, Ryan and I talked and we thought about it. And then, we talked and we're like, maybe we should change it. And then we talked about it again. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Like,
yeah. And I even said, I was like, Jason, like, feel free to bring this up at any point. Like you could have texted me or anything. Like I just wanted to make sure that you knew that you had permission to tell me anything that you were feeling, right? Like, cause I want to be receptive to that too. And so it wasn't like, hey, like you have to dance around it. It's like, no, like, let's just be transparent with where we are. And so it feels good to all of us. And then that way, if we have to meet in the middle, whatever that looks like, we can. But from my perspective, like I'm not going to be able to meet in the middle with what you want if I don't know. So I'm like, hey, just tell me. Right. And, you had said that like, I tend to be, I get things done.
I love it.
But I never try to come from like a point of like being the boss or trying to tell you what to do. Or it's just like, if we're going to set a goal together, then let's accomplish those goals, whatever it takes. And something that helps too, this might help you in your marriage, in your friendships, in your business partners. It's like, hey, we have a disagreement, but like same team, right? Like say you were, I don't know, I'm going to talk to you about a business. Let's say it's a business partnership here. And I'd be like, Jason, I want to talk to you about something. I don't quite like agree with it, or this could kind of be a tough conversation, but I want to preface it like same team. And so, and what like my concern is my concern is X, Y, and Z. Like, how can we solve this? Because I really want this partnership to be successful and I want to be able to do those things. And by me prefacing things, okay, it really helps the other person to lower that wall and that guard of like, okay, this is same team. Okay, now let's just like figure out how to address this. And sometimes with team members, with employees, I don't even like the word, I do not like the word employee. I like team members or team or whatever. But with whoever it is, it's like, hey, same team.
Right.
And let's just find a solution.
Now, if you're leading people, you need to go listen to that again, because that's that's really important, is prefacing conversations and basically setting, like you're setting the expectation.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's gonna be a tough conversation, but at the end of the day, we both want the same thing. We both want to win. You know, we both want, we're on the same team. We both want to accomplish where we need to go, but there's some choppy waters we got to get through, and we got to have this hard conversation. And most of the time, it never ends up being as hard as you really think.
No. But the thing is when most people, a lot of times, most people, doesn't matter the kind of partnership, is they'll start out like, hey, like they don't even preface it. They don't plant the seed. They don't anything. They're just like,
it's
hey,
like attack.
Yeah, it's just an attack. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, let's take a couple steps backwards. First, let's preface it. Let's use the word we more, and just some of these other things. And it just helps so much with running a team.
Oh, I love that. It being a woman in business, what are some advice that you can give some lady babes out there, some lady bosses, some boss babes, whatever you want to call them, that they can have, like, to voice their opinion or how to deal with more people? Because like there's kind of a stigma out there, and, you know, obviously, you know, it is what it is and whatever, but what is some advice you can give a woman in business or leading teams, or to gain like a lot of, like, I get the question a lot. I hope I'm not coming across the wrong way, but I get the question a lot of, how do I earn the respect with people? With men.
With men.
Yes.
I know 100% what you're talking about.
Yes.
So this is kind of interesting that you brought this up, is that here in Utah, and tell me if you have a different perspective on this, there's a very predominant group of men or groups of men, right? Whether it's on social media or off,
right?
That are kind of leading the pack in a certain way in certain areas. And I don't know if other cities have that quite as much. And I don't know, maybe if it's just more prevalent here in Utah, because maybe we do have a lot more working moms, and maybe a lot more of the workforce here is males. And I could be wrong on this.
Right.
And so for me, I like, as I say it, like, I'm kind of playing in a man's world in a sense here. Most of my business partners, they're all men.
Right.
And for me, it's like those questions have gone through my head. Like, how do I earn the respect of these men? Like, what do I do? Or some of them, like, don't even pay attention to me. Like, hey, like, I'm valuable. I have ideas. I have all these things. But sometimes I almost feel like I'm overlooked because I'm a woman. But then on the contrary, I feel like in a way I have a lot of respect from other men, or even some of the same men, but where they respect me as a woman for what I'm doing, and I'm overcoming certain challenges, and I'm putting myself out there in a space where there's not a ton of women.
Right.
And so I personally have had that come up. And I think for me, just like what I've had to go back to is, look, like, I'm just going to be who I am, and I'm going to build what I'm building. And if people want to be part of it, men or women alike, they're more than welcome to. If they want to partner with me, if they want to talk about ideas, they want to get together for coffee or lunch or whatever it is, like, sweet, let's do it. But if they don't find value in who I am, maybe because I'm a woman, then, like, so be it. Like, that's not, they're not, like, I don't want them in my life anyhow. Right. And so for me, I focus more on what I'm doing and what I'm building. But as a woman, there's a book called The Athena Doctrine. Have you heard of it?
Mm-hmm. I have.
So it talks a lot about why women are great at running companies, because of the feminine side, because of the soft side, because of how we can communicate maybe not as harsh to people.
Right.
And so for women that are in business, and these are some ideas that I'm toying with right now, is I've played so much in my masculine my entire life. So I'm talking about, like, masculine and feminine here.
Right.
And I think that's pretty evident. If you don't know what I'm talking about here, a book called The Way of the Superior Man. Have you read that book?
I have not.
Oh my gosh,
I've heard
Jason. It's okay. I will say, just that book showed me things that went wrong in my marriage that I couldn't clearly articulate went wrong, because sometimes it's hard to articulate our feelings or what we're feeling inside.
Right.
That book helped me with it.
Really?
Yes, 100%. And because my dad passed away when I was 13, I was forced to grow up quick. I was forced to play in my masculine, in relationships, in friendships, in business, and all the things. And I've had to learn, how can I balance that masculine, that fighter, that driver, just all, like, the hustle of my life with, like, the beauty of women, and, like, that feminine side, that soft side, that loving, that nurturing side. And for so much of my life, I kind of pushed that away. And in a way, that's how I got to where I am, was by operating so much in my masculine. But guess what? there were parts of my soul that were missing.
Right.
And the parts of my soul that were missing were more of the feminine side, like my friendships and just all the things on when it comes to feminine energy. So, and I'm not trying to get woo woo here by any means. That's not where I'm going with this. What I'm getting at is, as women in business, how can we balance, and I don't think it's 50-50, right? How can we balance the feminine side of women, but also have that go-getter, that doing, that accomplishing goal side of things? And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. And that's what I love about the Sisterhood Society, is not only do I get to bring my masculine, my go-getter side, but I get to bring this like soft nurturing side too.
Right.
And I think for women, especially when it goes back to like the Athena doctrine, is as I'm leading a team with my companies, I get to incorporate more of that feminine side that I think so much of like society has told women or told us. I feel, am I saying that word funny? Told. There we go. Anyhow, I'm still in Florida or Boston or somewhere. They've told us like, that's not how businesses are run. They're not run by the nurturing side, the loving side. They're run by just get things done.
Right.
And so I'm kind of playing with that, but I would say like, that's the beauty of life, is we, as women, we get to figure out like, we can run businesses, we can do these things, but we can also run a side of businesses and make a different impact than maybe men would get to make.
For sure.
Because we just run things differently.
Right.
We have a different impact on people. And so the advice that I would say is, yes, there's a time and a place for the goals and the doing and the hustling, but then there's also a part of us that we need to like nurture our souls.
Right.
And that's kind of what I'm playing with. And that's the Sisterhood Society, and even friendships that I'm building. I mean, that's some of the advice that I would give is, as women, how can we have both? Because the thing is, a lot of women struggle with setting goals, setting boundaries, prioritizing things, just working. And granted, I can work a good 12 to 16 hours in a day.
I've
I can do it.
Yep.
I try not to do it. I can do it though. And so for me, the challenge is the opposite.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You think it's just how your personality?
I don't think it's my personality. Well, I mean, in a way it's my personality, but it's because I had to when I was a teenager. I had it's sink or swim.
Right.
And I was not going to sink. And so for me, it was just so ingrained in me to push emotions aside and just accomplish goals. But then you get to a point that you're like, wait, you know what I mean? It's like when, let's just say, super, super successful individuals that we see online, or musicians or even actors, that they commit suicide. And it's like they were successful in ways, but yet part of their soul was missing.
Right.
You know?
Right. Fulfillment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's really, really powerful stuff. Would you have any advice? Let's turn this around. Would you have any advice to a man towards women? Or men towards women?
Like men that are running companies?
Like running companies, like men that are running companies and have women, or maybe hiring women or looking for a spot. It's kind of funny. Like we have a lot of women who work for us,
mm-hmm.
and we have certain positions, and I'm like, hey, try to hire a woman because it's just they perform better in that situation, or people tend to trust women more.
Yes.
So like women salespeople are awesome because they can sell and sell and sell and sell. Like one of my best sales people is a woman right now, and she is a killer. Mm-hmm. Like. She's a very go-getter personality, and I'm like, every time a customer comes in, I'm scared for you because you think you're buying something today.
You think you're buying a $10,000 RV, you're going to be walking out of here with $1 million RV.
Yep, and it has happened multiple times, and she loves it. She is a riot to hang out with. She's awesome. She's up at one of our Oregon stores. But is there any advice that you give, like a man and having women in their organizations? Do you treat them different? Like, what do you do?
Well, I think we have to understand, I mean, the way we treat men and women in a way, we want to treat them the same, but we have to also understand the difference between men and women, like that masculine and that feminine. Women, the beautiful part about women that gets a lot of shame is their emotions, right? And how it's up and down and all around. But we can look at that and be like, well, we don't want to hire a woman because she's going to be crying one day and, maybe, 2 hours later, she's going to be laughing her butt off. Right. But the thing is like when we can learn to appreciate the different values and the different characteristics that both the man and the woman can bring to the table, I think we can really thrive more in business, where a lot of corporate world, a lot of business is you do things like the masculine way. And there's not much room there to bring in like a woman in terms of like that feminine side. I mean, and you could be a man that, you know, have more of that feminine side. I'm not trying to like get into all the gender stuff.
Right.
That's not what I'm trying to do. The biggest thing is there's so much masculine in business that doesn't make room for the feminine side, and it doesn't even shine light and appreciate that. But if we can just mold the two,
right,
then I think that we can get more done, have more of an impact, have a more successful team, and just really be able to do more in life when we can merge the two together.
Right. I would even argue that men that have a more, I mean, because you're talking like feminine and masculine, like, and men can be both.
Yes.
I might be, but like I really do like I've never really put it that way, but I really do have like a softer emotional side to me, and there is like I have like very understanding of people and very emotional with people, and I'll cry with people. I'll, you know, I do think that business, like a true business leadership position or like the culture of the company needs to have that. It needs to have that. And it's like, if you're a person who doesn't have that feminine side, that is because, you know, that doesn't really understand people, and, you know, only has that masculinity side that is just, you know,
cutthroat.
Yeah. Cutthroat guy, extreme. He doesn't really care or whatever. You're going to need either a man or a woman. Just, you're going to need some femininity in there and a feminine side that helps you with that, like, because and it's really like, you know, play to your strengths, right? If that's not your strength, then get someone that can help you. Like, you know, I've been contacted by people that, hey, like, I don't care about people, I hate people, this and that and the other. You need to come help me create a culture, because I have that side of understanding, and like, hey, you just have like 40 guys running here around this freaking testosterone thing, just everybody just wants to fight each other.
Egos.
Like, egos. Just, you need to have a team, and it's like, I love sports. We just were at the Gator game, or the Utes game. It was not the Gators game. It was the Utes game. They lost, but whatever. We won't talk about that. But it was a great game. And, you know, you have a football team with there's not 11 quarterbacks out there. It's an entirely different team, right? And down to the coaches and down to, you know, the trainers and everybody. It's just a different personality. And there are a lot of women. I love women coming up in coaching, and love women coming up in different things, because like they call, you know, football a man's world, a man's sport. Yes, it's a bunch of dudes on a football field, but there's so much more to that, and more to teams than just being cutthroat and dry. And like, you need that in certain situations, but I would say men need to be cutthroat and women need to be cutthroat, but men also need to be understanding and emotional. And women are already kind of emotional.
Yes, we are. And Jason, what's funny is I used to pride myself on only crying like 3 times a year. I used to pride myself on not having certain qualities that women have that like are very stereotypical, right? Like the emotional side, the ups and the downs, the crying, the blah, blah, blah. I used to pride myself on that. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm robbing myself of something in life here by...
Because almost a release. And
yes.
Like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, can I tell you how many times I've cried in the last year? The thing is, I mean, granted, there was the divorce stuff, but even like getting through that this year, I've cried probably 1 to 3 times almost every week, but it's not out of sadness. At this point in my life, it's out of gratitude. It's out of the lives that I get to impact, that I get to be in a position to change lives, that I get to be in a position to put food on the table for people.
Right.
And to be able to know the little girl that I was and how much pain I used to be in, and that now I get to be someone that gets to help other little boys and girls, right? I mean, they're adults now, but I get to I get to give back
in their journey.
Yeah. And now I'm crying out of like tears of like gratitude that, wow, like, because I had the courage to not become a statistic, because I had the courage to do the things that I do, now I get to give back. And that's like the feminine, like that's part of like the beauty of females is embodying that and caring about that. And I used to pride myself more on just being so masculine and all the things. And I'm like, nope, that's not where I want to play anymore.
Right.
I get to balance both of them.
Really. That's so awesome. And you're absolutely amazing. I'm so thankful and grateful that Ryan introduced us at that, I don't even remember what restaurant we went to at Brio.
Yep.
Yeah. And ever since when I met you, I'm like, man, get shit done for sure. I mean, this is going to be a wild ride, and I'm just very, very grateful for you. Very grateful to know you, and you've taught me a lot, and I'm really, really excited for this journey that we're about to embark on, that we're starting, and we're not quite ready to announce yet, but it's going to be one epic company, epic thing what we're doing. The last thing I want to ask you and wrap this up is, success is what to you? What does success mean?
For me, right, I think success is different
Yes.
for each person. Success at this point in my life is being fulfilled, and really being able to embrace who I am as an individual, as a woman, as an individual, as a leader, as a business owner, and really, like, at the end of the day, being happy and fulfilled with who I am and who I've become. And that at the end of the day, I get to have a smile on my face. To me, that's success, regardless of, most people talk about success in monetary terms.
Right.
For me, it's not that. I mean, when I leave this life, I'm not taking money with me.
Right.
I'm taking my soul with me. And
Right.
I want to make sure that at the end of my life, I'm successful, that I will get to be true to myself and who I really am.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Caloni, thank you so much for being on here. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
Thank you very much.